Tonight, anti-war protesters claim police are to blame for the violence amid calls for a tougher crackdown.
Live to Bourke Street as demonstrators stop traffic. The Premier insisting Melbourne is still a good place to host major events.
Prosecutors demand a life sentence for Greg Lynn as Carol Clay's loved ones detail their anguish.
Wealthy Australians to pay more for nursing home beds. Billions more to be spent on home care.
An unmanned speed camera turning heads in Croydon. Government agencies unsure how it ended up there.
And the Hollywood Hawks arrive in Adelaide for their must-win finals clash against Port.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Alicia Loxley and Tom Steinfort.
Good evening. A teenager arrested in violent demonstrations in the heart of Melbourne says he would do it again.
Aidan Hall was one of dozens of protesters taken into custody, but there's anger that none have been jailed. Reid Butler has today's developments.
Out of cuffs and back on campus, Aidan Hall freed after being arrested in the violent anti-war protests. And he's proud of it, already planning to attend more demonstrations.
I think the people who really should be in handcuffs are the people inside that conference.
The 19-year-old wouldn't say what he did to end up in custody, but he says the police used excessive force.
Personally, it was just completely shocking.
It is absolutely and completely rubbish. Like anyone that advances that needs to have their head read.
Aidan was among 42 people arrested, all avoided jail. 22 were charged and bailed. 10 people are expected to be charged on summons and 10 others were slapped with fines.
There's no doubt that there are professional activists who some come from interstate and others well known to Victoria Police.
Including New South Wales climate activist Deanna Violet Coco, back protesting in the city today, despite being charged and briefly jailed over demonstrations on the Westgate Bridge in March. But it was yesterday's violence that put Melbourne on the world stage for all the wrong reasons.
Anti-war protesters and police clashed outside an exhibition in Melbourne, Australia.
And now the government is considering giving police greater powers.
We'll look further at whether we can strengthen that.
The laws are much tighter in New South Wales, where a permit is required to organise a protest.
We're investigating it. It's just that there's a balance to be struck.
There is a good chance more demonstrators could be taken into custody, with police now trawling through hours of body cam footage, trying to identify any others who may have broken the law.
And I'd urge all Victorians, when they see a member of Victoria Police, to thank them and to give them a thumbs up.
But as EBA negotiations drag on, the Police Association wants just that.
You can't pay them enough for the work that they do.
Absolutely, we will continue to exercise our democratic right to protest.
Reid Butler, 9 News.
Anti-war protesters have again clashed with police and held parts of the CBD hostage.
Just this past hour, they've shut down part of Bourke Street. Let's go live now to Isabella Stashkovsky, who's there. Isa, where exactly are those demonstrators now?
Alicia, good evening to you. They're now marching throughout the CBD and heading toward Batman Park. As you can see, they've just started marching in the past few moments. They've shut down a section of Bourke Street in front of Hanwha Defence. That is the company they have been targeting now for almost 2 hours. Things are certainly starting to heat up, and this is the largest demonstration that we have seen throughout the day. They're promising more protest action throughout the evening and into tomorrow. Alicia, this is how much of today turned out.
Shut it down, shut it down.
At the front of this group, a woman taunts officers. The reaction heated.
What the wrong with you?
It's one of many similar moments.
Resources should not be used to be causing destruction anywhere in the world.
This is day 2 of demonstrations outside the Land Forces Expo. Far fewer protesters today, outnumbered by police. This woman taken aside by officers and is now under investigation.
Oh no, this is my action, my uniform.
There were several arrests.
These people are complicit with genocide.
And searches.
A police officer intends to conduct a limited search of you.
Off camera, an officer showing 9 News the contents of this woman's bag, including balls to throw beneath horses' feet.
This weapons confection, Land Forces, is the most disgusting display of weapons bosses of universities coming together.
The protest group keeps splintering off and trying to get into the convention centre from different angles and different locations, but a heavy police presence keeps on pushing them away. The expo is projected to deliver $70 million to the economy, but these protests could bring that number down.
Melbourne is a great destination for conferences like this.
All these war machines can get out of my country. We will never stop. We'll never stop.
Isabella Stashkovsky, 9 News.
Prosecutors are calling for High Country killer Greg Lynn to be handed a life sentence for the murder of Carol Clay. Her loved ones fought back tears as they described the past 4 years as a horror movie that still haunts them. Court reporter Amber Johnston.
Arriving at the Supreme Court on his 58th birthday today was not about Greg Lynn, but about the families of Russell Hill and Carol Clay. Ordinary people embracing the detectives who brought down the killer. Today was their chance to regain control of the narrative, trying to turn the horror that unfolded in the Wanangata Valley in March 2020 into fond memories of their loved ones. Carol's daughter remembering her mother's amazing sense of humour and infectious laugh. She was a phenomenal woman, famous for her sponges, one-time state president of the CWA and a dedicated volunteer. Her achievements, too many to list. I refuse to let her legacy be that of a murder victim, said Emma Davies. Carol's sister, Gillian Walker, reliving her desperate appeals to try and find the 73-year-old. This process was nerve-wracking and physically exhausting. Carol was a wonderful woman with a very caring and generous heart. She was the glue of our family, which has now come unstuck. It has been almost 3 months since the former Jetstar pilot was found guilty of killing Carol Clay and was acquitted of Russell Hill's murder. Today, a bitter blow for his widow and daughter, who weren't allowed to submit victim impact statements. Public interest in the case hasn't wavered since the verdict. Today, the public gallery at the Supreme Court was packed with at least 30 people, including one of the jurors who helped convict Greg Lynn. Now his fate is in the court's hands, with prosecutor Daniel Porchidou calling for the harshest sentence, life behind bars. But even though Greg Lynn told police he dumped the bodies and burnt them, embarking on a cover-up, he still maintains he's not a killer. His lawyer Dermot Dan telling the court he's gravely troubled by the verdict and intends to appeal. But that won't happen until Greg Lynn is sentenced in October. Amber Johnston, 9 News.
The centrepiece of a multi-billion-dollar overhaul of aged care will be more time at home, but it comes with a warning: there will be more costs. Aged care operators say the agreement provides the certainty needed to see additional facilities built, with a vow to bring wait times down. Political editor Charles Croucher.
The old saying says home is where the heart is.
Hi Bob, it's Cherie.
Tonight, a new deal for aged care will make home where the help is.
Helping them remain independent in their home and their community for longer.
At the centre of the change, the Supported Home program, providing assistance for 1.4 million Australians to age at home with nursing, rehabilitation, meal preparation, gardening and independent living support. The $4.3 billion program will come into effect from July next year.
We'll reduce wait times for in-home care with a target of 3 months by July 2027.
They will not pay a cent more. And that was one of the concessions that was not negotiable from the Coalition.
Programs will be tailored to individuals, and Australians currently on a home care package will keep that package. Up to $15,000 will also be available for home upgrades like ramps and rails to make homes safer.
Older Australians built this country and what they deserve, to have dignity and respect in retirement.
Self-funded retirees will pay up to 12 times more than pensioners. All home care costs will count towards lifetime contribution caps for non-clinical care. That will rise from the current ceiling of $80,000 to $130,000, with that figure indexed and growing annually.
The reforms are backed by Labor and the Coalition, meaning they'll pass this parliament and survive future ones, bringing much-needed certainty to the industry.
I think over the next couple of days and weeks, you might see large providers announcing new builds for the first time in years because they can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
The other cost, aged care facilities will be able to retain 2% of residents' deposits for 5 years, totalling up to $75,000. The next challenge, training and staffing the thousands of positions that will be created and needed.
Because it is a real privilege to work in aged care. It is some of the most meaningful work you could ever hope to do.
Charles Croucher, 9 News.
2 of the children rescued from a burning Sydenham home on Sunday night have died in hospital. The sisters, aged 5 and 21 months, passed away surrounded by family. Their 3-year-old brother is in a stable condition. Detectives continue to probe what may have caused the fire and who was home at the time.
Up to 9 defence commanders have been stripped of their medals awarded for service during the Afghanistan war. But the federal government's decision has left some veterans infuriated. National Affairs editor Andrew Probyn.
Australia's longest war, stained by misconduct and murder, committed by our military's best.
This will always be a matter of national shame.
A 4-year inquiry by former Judge Paul Brereton implicated 25 Special Forces soldiers in 39 unlawful killings, none in the heat of battle. He found there was no credible information commanding officers knew of the alleged war crimes, but they remained accountable for what happened on their watch, recommending their medals be reviewed.
Medals are awarded for conspicuous conduct. And the judgment that Major General Brereton goes through is, had we known what had occurred, would the medals have been granted?
We are judging these officers before the government knows the truth.
Up to 9 senior soldiers receiving letters this week from Richard Marles, ordering them to surrender their medals. 9's been told some are still serving soldiers. All were majors or lieutenant colonels at the time.
Throwing your diggers under the bus and not one of those officers will end up with a charge.
Shadow Defence Minister Andrew Hastie, a former SAS captain, heard rumours of wrongdoing by Special Forces before his own deployment to Afghanistan in 2013. He says troops were let down by higher ranks who lacked moral courage.
But those in the chain of command who saw the post-mission slide decks with the kill counts and pictures of dead individuals had an obligation to ask questions.
A point of view that had troubled former Defence Force Chief Angus Campbell. He was commanding officer in the Middle East at the time of the alleged war crimes.
I wonder, was there something I walked past? Was there some indicator I didn't see?
9 News has confirmed Angus Campbell offered to surrender his own medal from Afghanistan some years back, but was rebuffed by the Morrison government. Andrew Probyn, 9 News.
A motorcyclist has died after his bike collided with a car in Bayswater. He was travelling along Malvern Street when the crash happened around 5:30 this morning. The man died at the scene and hasn't yet been identified. The woman driving the car wasn't hurt.
Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have paused hostilities to stand side by side. The presidential candidates were in New York at a memorial for victims of the 9/11 terror attacks 23 years on. More from Alison Petrowski.
A handshake sealed with a smile. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris in a rare moment of unity. Pausing alongside the president to remember the nearly 3,000 lives lost on September 11, 2001. And then, a day after his deputy took on Trump, came this strange moment. Joe Biden briefly donning the trademark red hat.
There he goes.
In what the White House says was a bipartisan gesture.
Remember, no eating dogs and cats.
Thanks for the support, Joe, posted the Trump campaign, as Trump himself resumed claiming debate victory.
You know, when you win, you don't really necessarily have to do it a second time.
President 45 refusing to commit to round 2 against Kamala Harris.
We won the debate according to every poll, every single poll. I think that, are we going to do a rematch? I just don't know.
More than half of debate watchers in a new poll disagree. 63% saying the vice president outperformed the former president, but Trump told 9 News it was his night.
Mr. President, what would you give yourself out of 10?
Pretty close to a 10. That was our best debate.
The debate was a confidence booster for the vice president, and it will calm any jitters within the Democratic Party. But debate victories don't necessarily translate into election wins. But on the road to the White House, the Swifties could help shift the needle. Taylor Swift's backing of Kamala Harris in a post signed off childless cat lady has drawn more than 9 million likes, to the ire of Trump fans. "Fine, Taylor, you win," posted billionaire Trump supporter Elon Musk in a bizarre post. "I will give you a child and guard your cats with my life."
Taylor Swift just endorsed Kamala Harris. You can kiss your sales to the Republican audience goodbye, Taylor. Hope you enjoyed them while you had them.
Trump dismissing it as bad blood.
I was not a Taylor Swift fan. It was just a question of time.
In Washington, D.C., Alison Petrowski, 9 News.
There's always a Taylor Swift reference before we bring in Tony Jones.
I didn't think I'd ever agree with Donald Trump. No, I'm not getting involved in that. Anyway, thanks, guys. Coming up tonight, no Taylor Swift, but the Hawks have named their team for tomorrow night's semi-final. Nat Yanidis has the details.
Tony, just the one change for Hawthorn. As we found out yesterday, Jai Sarong is coming in for the injured Sam Frost. Now, the Hawks, they arrived in Adelaide this afternoon, along with a legion of fans who are loving the ride that this young side have taken them on. We'll have more on Hawthorn's final training run coming up in sport.
Thanks, Nat. Also coming up a little later on, the pressure mounts on Toby to step up for the Giants as the coach, well, he dishes out an order to our cameraman. On the back of signing the biggest deal in football, Max says it's not just about money. Could this Storm champ be in line for the game's 2 biggest honours? And cricket's new Master Blaster helps himself to a T20 record. That's all coming up a little later on in sport.
Looking forward to that. We'll see you shortly, Tony. All right, when 9 News Melbourne returns, Hero Tradies rescue a disabled woman from her burning home in Mill Park.
The radical proposal that could slash stamp duty for thousands of older Victorians.
And a mysterious roadside surveillance camera stops traffic in Croydon.
A woman and a child were injured in a multi-vehicle pile-up involving 2 cars and a truck at Donnybrook this morning. Emergency crews were called to the scene at 8 a.m, with fire crews helping to rescue a man who was trapped in one of the cars. It's believed the cars collided head-on after one of the drivers tried to pass the truck.
A handyman who brutally killed his neighbour has been sentenced to 27 years jail after facing 3 Supreme Court trials. The killer has always maintained his innocence and has never shown remorse for murdering Vicky Ramadan. Stephanie Anderson has more.
He claimed he was the caring neighbour.
I really hope to God that the cops catch the son of like I really do, because she didn't deserve this whatsoever.
But Stuart Anderson's story quickly came unstuck. A jury agreed he's the man police had to catch. And now for murdering 77-year-old Vicky Ramadan, he'll spend at least 20 years behind bars.
Oh, honestly, I felt sick. I felt really sick. I was nervous.
That's the handyman speaking to 9 News in 2019, 10 days after Miss Ramadan was found dead in the Sydenham home where she lived alone. Anderson had helped her with odd jobs in the past and said he discovered her body when he returned to collect his tools.
Knocked on the door and noticed that she wasn't home, and went to go walk out and noticed that her back gate was open, which I thought was a bit strange.
But prosecutors claim he was actually there to rob the elderly woman. You spontaneously killed Miss Ramadan in the hallway of her own home using a weapon which may have been a hammer. Through 3 trials and before 3 juries, Anderson maintained his innocence. But guilty was the final verdict. With time already served, he'll be eligible for parole in 2039.
She seemed like a very, very, very lovely lady, mate. Like, she didn't deserve this at all.
Stephanie Anderson, 9 News.
Good Samaritans have rescued their neighbour who requires a wheelchair from her burning home in Mill Park. 2 men smashed a window to pull the woman to safety after the blaze started around 3 a.m. The 56-year-old was taken to hospital with minor injuries. Her 25-year-old son escaped the house unharmed.
Older Victorians would be exempt from stamp duty under a new plan from the property industry. While it would encourage empty nesters to downsize, there's likely to be opposition from younger buyers. Here's Chris Kohler.
Under the plan, anyone over 60 would be given a free pass on stamp duty when downsizing into their final home. The theory is that would incentivise older Victorians to sell their well-located family homes that have bedrooms they no longer need, meaning more houses for young families to buy. Victoria already has an exemption for pensioners looking to buy a property worth up to $600,000, but this would be much broader.
We think that it could create several thousand new transactions in the market, so that would certainly have a flow-through effect that would be very positive for Victorian housing overall and for the supply of new projects, especially in the apartment market.
But it would be tricky. Stamp duty makes up more than a quarter of Victoria's tax income, and Tim Pallas wants all of that cash. And younger Victorians might feel a bit left out. After all, incentives make sense, but nobody likes stamp duty.
Hundreds of protesters have invaded Mexico's parliament, bursting through the door and storming the Senate chamber. The demonstrators are rallying against reform that'll mean judges at all levels of government will be elected by popular vote. Despite the interruption, the reform passed, critics now fearing it will undermine democracy.
Justin Timberlake has agreed to a plea deal in his drink driving case. The singer is due back in court later this week, where it's expected his drink driving charge will be dropped and he will instead plead guilty to a traffic violation.
They're meant to be inconspicuous, but a new road safety camera being trialled in Melbourne's outer east is, well, quite the opposite. Locals are not only confused by this bulky arrival, but also wondering why it's been placed in a bike lane. Isabel Quinlan reports.
It's the new roadside distraction which has left drivers scratching their heads.
I didn't know what it was, that's why I've come back to have a look.
I was a little bit surprised actually seeing that there. That's why I just stopped to see exactly what it was.
This peculiar device is actually an autonomous road safety camera, which can be used for everything from speed detection to number plate recognition.
A bit out of touch and out of place.
As to who put it there in the first place, several agencies from Vic Roads to the police were puzzled by its arrival. Late today, 9 News confirmed private operator Serco commissioned the trial. Either way, locals aren't happy with the trailer blocking the bike lane.
You've either got to go around onto the road, 70 k's an hour cars, or hop onto the footpath, which you've got to walk or break the law, basically.
Sitting in the bike lane, really? What are they thinking?
In a bizarre turn of events, 2 Vic road workers have just arrived. They're now putting safety bollards as well as signs around the trailer, with it now being deemed as a hazard, as it's required to be 1.5 metres away from traffic.
I really don't know what they're thinking with this one.
Surely there's a better place for it.
After receiving a number of complaints, Maroondah City Council says it has asked the state government for the trailer to be relocated. It's expected to be removed in the coming days. Isabel Quinlan, 9 News.
Bizarre. Right, Livinia Nixon joins us now with all the latest on the weather, and the spring sunshine was back today, Livinia.
Oh, it was, Alicia, but looks can be deceiving. It's been one of our coldest days for quite a while. After dipping to 9 degrees, the city only reached 14, and that maximum came before lunchtime, and it's 3 degrees lower than our September average. Yesterday's showers cleared out through the northeast of the state overnight. They've pushed into New South Wales and the southeast Queensland today. It'll be dry across Victoria again tomorrow, and importantly for footy fans, in South Australia as well. But cloud will increase ahead of a system that's moving up from the south. And I'll let you know when that's expected to impact Victoria later in the bulletin, Alicia and Tom.
All right, we'll see you soon. Thank you, Livinia. Coming up for you, where's William? The country's most baffling disappearance, still unsolved a decade later.
Legendary rocker John Bon Jovi talks a woman down from a ledge.
And cuddles for the King, Charles embraced by the Kiwi women's rugby team.
Shots were fired at a car in Altona North early this morning. Police say a group of men was gathered in a hotel car park on MacArthur's Road. It's understood when a vehicle approached, one of the men fired a number of shots. They missed the vehicle, but 2 rounds hit a nearby business. No one was in the building at the time.
The former lead detective in the William Tyrrell case claims he knows of information that could help solve the mystery.
On the 10th anniversary of the toddler's disappearance, Gary Jubelin has expressed frustration at the current inquiry. Damien Ryan reports.
Kendall, the sleepy village on the mid-north coast, continues to keep a dark secret. Where's William?
The whole community was in shock, and I still get a tingling down my spine when I think about William and drive down past that area.
He was the little boy in the Spider-Man suit who vanished 10 years ago today while playing outside his foster grandmother's home.
It was a shock, but no one could believe that he wasn't going to be found.
a missing persons case which became one of the country's most enduring mysteries.
I kind of think of William Tyrrell's disappearance as similar to that of Madeleine McCann. There was a lot of images available at the time and they really resonated with the public.
Former homicide detective Gary Jubilan was one of the lead investigators as police zeroed in on two suspects. But they were wrongly accused. One of them, washing machine repairman Bill Spedding, was awarded more than $1 million in damages and Jubilan was sacked. He remains on the outer, but claims he could still help solve the case.
I just hope all the facts come out about this matter. That's what, if it's frustrating, it's things that I know that haven't come out in the public.
With Jubilan moved on, the investigation took a dramatic turn. William Tyrrell's foster mother became the prime suspect. The police believe the 3-year-old died in a fall from a balcony and his foster mother disposed of the body. What evidence caused detectives to come up with that theory? Well, police will have to show their hand when the inquest into William's suspected death resumes later this year. Today on the anniversary, William Foster's father was seen leaving his Sydney home. His wife has continually denied having anything to do with his disappearance. A decade has passed and an appeal today from the Premier.
There's $1 million reward. Somebody out there knows something about this case.
The boy in the superhero suit, an image which continues to haunt not just a community, but a nation. Damien Ryan, 9 News.
Rock legend John Bon Jovi is being hailed a hero tonight after pausing the filming of his latest music video to help a woman in need. She was standing on the edge of a pedestrian bridge in Nashville. He stopped and persuaded her to climb back over the safety rails, the pair sharing a hug.
Australia is providing Vietnam with $3 million of humanitarian aid to help its recovery from Typhoon Yagi. The death toll has now risen to 197 as flash floods and landslides continue to wreak havoc in the country's north. King Charles has done away with royal protocol, warmly embracing members of New Zealand's women's rugby team. As Edward Godfrey tells us, it was a rare moment of public affection from the monarch.
King Charles at the centre of a royal rugby scrum. Hugs, giggles and beaming smiles as the monarch is mobbed by New Zealand's women's rugby team. The Black Ferns were invited to Buckingham Palace ahead of a match against their English rivals, when winger Alicia cheekily requested a hug.
Hug? Yeah. Why not?
A rare display of public affection beyond a handshake from the 75-year-old, who later called the hug healing. The King apologising for not being able to visit New Zealand while on his Australian tour next month, blaming doctors' orders.
In the meantime, give my love to New Zealand, please, will you? New Zealanders.
They performed a traditional Maori greeting and presented a Guernsey to the King, who offered some life advice in return.
I hope you make the most of your time in the team, because you don't stay young for very long, as I've discovered. It all goes quicker than you think.
The palace visit going more smoothly than the unveiling of sculptures of his late mother and father in Northern Ireland. Critics say they look nothing like Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip.
I'm not a royalist as such, but I think that she should have had more. They haven't done her right. She just doesn't look right.
Not quite the warm reception their son received in person today. In London, Edward Godfrey, 9 News.
All right, still ahead in the news. The crook who pinched Gary the gorilla from a northeast retirement village learns his fate.
Flinders Street Station notches up 170 years of moving Melburnians.
Plus, the bottle shop offering drive-through tattoos for footy fans.
The man accused of stealing a beloved gorilla statue from a St Helena retirement village has been handed a year-long community order. Matthew Newbold pleaded guilty to the opportunistic theft after he fled with the 20-kilogram Gary on the back of a ute. The police air wing spotted the silverback in a backyard before he was returned to his rightful home and very grateful residents.
After 3.5 years at the helm of Nine, Mike Sneesby will step down as Chief Executive at the end of the month. He said it's been a challenging year and the timing was right for a leadership transition. Chief Financial and Strategy Officer Matt Stanton will step in while a global search is conducted to find a permanent replacement.
Thursday Finance for you now, and yet another multi-million-dollar payday for former Qantas boss Alan Joyce. Chris Kohler explains.
It was the best day on our market in almost a month following a rebound on Wall Street overnight. The 1.1% rise means the ASX is back within 100 points of record highs. Big banks continue to lead the way, while some of the big miners are still struggling. BHP is now down 23% so far this year. And Qantas released its annual report, which includes executive pay. It showed former CEO Alan Joyce was paid another $3.4 million, despite leaving the airline only 2 months into the new financial year. He's had millions in bonuses taken back, but there's still quite a bit of money going his way. The Australian dollar pushed higher today, buying close to 67 US cents, 61 euro cents and 51 British pence.
For generations, Melburnians have met under the clocks at Flinders Street Station. But 170 years ago, there were no clocks, just one platform.
As Penelope Learsh found out, Australia's oldest railway station has come a long way since 1854, moving half of our city's train passengers every day.
Picture Melbourne and this scene might come to mind. A postcard-perfect landmark and a beloved meeting place. On September 12, 1854, 170 years ago, Australia's first steam train service started here.
It was originally just one platform, a few riverboard buildings.
Today, a sweet reminder of how much Melbourne has changed around the historic site.
Keep it this way, don't change it, all right?
They called a public competition, and the winning design was actually by two Victorians. Actually, they're both railway employees, and that building was then constructed between 1901 and 1910.
Since then, the famous clock tower has stood tall over the city, a steady rhythm keeping the trains and us on track.
It's just amazing. You think every moment in Melbourne's history since 1910, this clock has witnessed it.
Above the clocks, there is an iconic view out over our city. But it's the trains below and moving the people on them Flinders Street Station is all about.
We need something old and beautiful like Flinders Street Station. I love it. I love my Flinders Station.
Last year, nearly 20 million people passed through Flinders Street.
Roughly half our passengers come through here every day. That's, up to 300,000.
The station will be lit up to mark its 170th. The famous Standstone will be bathed in birthday blue later tonight.
Hopefully it'll be here for hundreds more years and future generations of Melburnians will enjoy it as much as we do.
Penelope Learsh, 9 News.
Some of Melbourne's most passionate footy fans have headed to the bottle shop today, but not for a drink. Thirsty Camel in Fairfield has helped fans make their love for their AFL team permanent, offering free drive-through tattoos. Fans lined up to get inked, but one staff member there bucked the trend, instead pledging allegiance to his employer. What do you think, guys? Just get a Channel 9 tattoo this weekend?
Yeah, I got one.
Seems reasonable.
Whereabouts, Tony?
Coming up in sport, the teams are in for this weekend's semi-finals. More on that shortly. Also in sport tonight, the Hawks cast a spell on Adelaide Oval. Toby steels himself a step up against the Lions. And Travis torments England in the first of the T20s. Hawthorn coach Sam Mitchell has resisted the urge to tinker with his side ahead of tomorrow night's semi-final clash with Port Adelaide. Nat Yanidis joins us live now from the newsroom. And Nat, a bit of a fan favourite, has missed out again.
Tony, the Hawks have only made the one forced change for this semi-final with Jai Sarong coming in for Sam Frost. It means that defender Chankwath Giath has missed out again. He's been named as an emergency for that match. Their opponents, they've made two changes. Todd Marshall is back, so it's going to be a very tall forward line for Port Adelaide. Jed McEntee's been dropped, while Ryan Burton has failed a fitness test this morning. For the Giants, Toby Bedford returns from injury, so a massive boost for them, while the Lions are unchanged, meaning Jack Payne will play despite that knee injury. But tomorrow, all eyes are going to be on the Hawks, who got to look at Adelaide Oval this afternoon ahead of their semi-final showdown.
The Hawks have touched down in Adelaide, confident they can continue this fairy tale finals ride.
We know Port's going to be a great challenge. This is a hostile environment. It'll be full of Port fans tomorrow, but we're looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, we're prepared for it, and we love putting on a show and love playing footy, so yeah, we're all about it.
The team left Melbourne alongside agitator, Port Adelaide great Kane Corns.
He's been a supporter of ours for a few months now, so hopefully we can do another one for him tomorrow.
Corns has been a critic of Jack Ginnivan's antics in the past. The Live Wire's call to head to the pub the night before the win over the Dogs was controversial and won't happen again tonight.
I think we'll just have dinner at the hotel lobby, and hopefully Jack just stays the group and does what he needs to do for tomorrow.
Injured mid Will Day will join teammates tomorrow. He still has a huge role to play as Hawthorn looks to tackle Port's star-studded midfield.
He knows he's still got an important part to play in the team's success, and he was in the coach's box on the weekend. He was on the phone to us midfielders during the game, giving us some tips.
Port star Zach Butters trained strongly this morning. If the Hawks were hoping to target his sore ribs, they should think twice.
Go for it. Unlike most people, unlike some people, Zach's a tough player, really tough player. He won't take a step backwards.
Ken Hinkley was on the offensive. He also rubbished suggestions his future is under threat, with the Power staring down the barrel of a straight sets exit.
I'm not going to be a smart ass here in any way, shape or form, but I'm contracted.
Nat Yannidis, 9 News.
As GWS heads into its cutthroat semi-final against Brisbane, much of the Giants' hopes will fall on the shoulders of their skipper. Toby Green needs to produce one of those magical matches of his if his side is to reach its 5th preliminary final. With no second chances, Giants coach Adam Kingsley was taking no chances at training today, ordering cameras to be turned off.
Just cameras off for the next drill.
Cameras down, but the Giants can ill afford to switch off, coming up against the Lions, themselves fighting for survival.
A fantastic team. It's the reason why they've been in 6 consecutive finals, more than any other team currently.
Captain Toby Green, by his own standards, has been down on form.
He had some opportunities that he would have liked to have taken, and that would have certainly helped us. So we need him to play better than what he did.
Like Sydney's Tom Papley, Toby can turn a game, but he was held goalless in that loss to the Swans.
You need as many as you can close to their best, and particularly our best players. We want to play as well as they possibly can to challenge the opposition.
Across the border, Chris Fagan and his Lions are again on the hunt. They finished outside the top 4, and the September challenge becomes greater by the week.
We don't feel like we've got a hell of a lot to lose. We came from a long way back to sort of get into finals.
The Lions had the luxury last week of a home final in front of a home crowd. However, victory this week will have to be achieved in hostile territory.
We have confidence on the road. We think the way that we play, if we turn up with the right attitude, we can do it anywhere.
In a boost for Brisbane, defender Jack Payne will suit up despite getting scans on his knee through the week. Redemption could be the motivation for Geelong forward Ollie Henry. Having walked out on Collingwood, he then had to endure watching his former teammates go on to win the premiership. Henry is now 2 wins away from tasting his own success.
And I have belief that, over hopefully the long term here, we'll put ourselves in situations like we are now, and that's ultimately what I want to achieve here.
Geelong will take on the winner of GWS and Brisbane. Well, with the ink barely dry on football's biggest ever contract, Mac Andrews says he was never going to leave the Gold Coast Suns. But already the multi-billion-dollar 12-year deal has raised some eyebrows. Here's Chief Footy reporter Tom Morris, who broke the story last night.
He's the Gold Coast Sun who's laughing all the way to the bank. The deal Mac Andrew has struck is mouthwatering. $12 million over 9 years.
It's pretty good, pretty surreal. To know that I'll be getting to play for at least another 5 years, if not 10. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but no, just thanks to the club for putting faith in me for that long.
As part of that deal, if Andrew was to play 60 games over 5 years, it would trigger the final 4 years of the contract. But money alone, he says, wasn't the main factor in staying at the Suns.
I wouldn't be standing here if I didn't think we were going to challenge for premiership, so I think that's the ultimate goal, to obviously not only push for finals and make finals, but I think challenge for premierships.
The record-breaking contract has already drawn concerns, given the 20-year-old has only played 41 games of AFL.
You take a big deal like this, the pressure that goes on players to perform, and everyone will be talking about, gee, he's now a $1 million plus player.
While Hawthorn and Melbourne were among the Victorian clubs keen to lure Andrew home, they'll need to look for new targets. Mac isn't going anywhere.
Pretty easy decision in the end. I never really wanted to go back to Melbourne. Made a life for myself up here, and feel really connected with the club.
And believe it or not, Mac Andrews' huge payday will become the new norm before too long. So last year there were 19 millionaires in the AFL. By next year, this number will rise to 50 as the salary cap explodes from 15 million to almost 18 million. Now, one list boss I spoke to today predicts there'll be 100 millionaires in the AFL by 2027. So who are these players in pole position to pocket this influx of cash? Well, Chad Warner and Sam Darcy are both out of contract next year. They're certain to command $1 million a year. And the big fish is Harley Reid, who's 2 seasons remaining on a deal and could well be the AFL's first $2 million player. If only we were good footballers ourselves, Tony.
If only that hammy didn't go out on me at 6. Anyway, thanks for that. Melbourne Storm star Jerome Hughes is trying his best to drown out the noise that comes with, well, being one of the favourites for the Dally M medal. The halfback is focused on claiming a second premiership with the Storm, despite the best efforts of his teammates.
Munster makes me hear it and shows me all these different articles, and pretty much everyone in the locker room's been doing the same, so I don't know what's going on, but yeah, that's not really my focus at the moment. I'm looking for the team accolade.
Minor Premier Melbourne will tackle the Sharks in a qualifying final at Amy Park here on Saturday. Cricket, and Travis Head has had a record day out with the bat. In the first of the T20s against England, Head equaled the record for the fastest half-century by an Australian. His 50 coming off 19 balls.
Oh, man out there, but again, he's just getting it from the crowd. This is remarkable hitting.
In one Sam Curran over alone, Head belted in for 30 runs. England fell 28 runs shy of its target, helped by this catch from Cameron Green. And that's sport for tonight. I'll talk to you tomorrow night from Adelaide.
Looking forward to it. Very good, Tony. Thank you. Time to check back in with Livinia. No blue skies for our Friday.
Oh, no, I'm afraid not. It'll be Friday the 13th, so a little bit of bad luck already. But on the upside, we'll be slightly warmer than today. I'll have all the Friday weather and the latest weekend forecast next. Hello again. Melbourne has been under beautiful spring sunshine, but it couldn't do much to boost the temperature. The city only reached 14.3. The southerly breezes have been keeping things chilly right across town. Most suburbs did a little better than the city, with maximums of 15 degrees, but feels like temperatures have been in single figures for most of the day. It was a mild night through eastern Victoria, but a cooler night through the west, particularly at Horsham. It got down to 1 degree there this morning, but it warmed up to 16 this afternoon. And the canola fields were looking beautiful there earlier today. It'll be dry across most of the country tomorrow, and that includes Adelaide. There should be clear skies, light breezes, and a temperature of around 13 degrees for the first bounce of tomorrow night's Port Hawthorn final. For us, a system will move up from the south, and that'll send showers across parts of Victoria from the early hours of Saturday. Brisbane's in for some light showers tomorrow morning, then a top of 22, 19 in Sydney, showers for Hobart and just 14 degrees, 18 in Adelaide. Back home, it'll be a chilly night through northern parts of the state and a frost warning for the northeast district. Wodonga is heading down to 2 degrees, 3 and 4 elsewhere through the north, but it'll warm up into the high teens and low 20s in the afternoon. There'll be more cloud about through the south, so a little cooler, mostly 16 or 17. So despite a rather grey day, there'll be plenty of colour tomorrow night as the Australian Ballet launches the world premiere of Oscar at the Regent Theatre. Based on the original Bad Boy of Literature, Oscar Wilde, the ballet captures the wit, charm and complex life of one of history's most controversial authors. And it'll be just as colourful as Oscar's life, set amongst the opulence and decadence of 1880s London society. It's only in Melbourne until the 23rd of September. So that will be the splash of colour that Melbourne needs tomorrow. There'll be grey skies over the city, but a little warmer than today. Northern and eastern suburbs heading for 16 and 17. 18 degrees at Werribee and Geelong. After an overnight low of 7, Geelong should reach 17. The city's heading down to 9 degrees and is also expected to peak at 17. Showers will develop in the early hours of Saturday and they're not expected to clear until the late afternoon. On top of that, it'll be very chilly, just 12 degrees. A partly cloudy top of 14 on Sunday, 15 on Monday. Tuesday's looking better, 19 degrees, up to 22 on Wednesday, but gusty winds will spoil the fun run, along with showers from the afternoon. More showers next Thursday and 17. We'll have a cloudy day to end our working week. Tomorrow, a low of 9 degrees and a top of 17. And then a wet day awaits on Saturday.
OK, Livinia, thank you very much for that. And that is 9 News this Thursday. Ali is up next with the current affair.
We hope you have a great evening. For now, though, it's good night.